The old versions of Minecraft are full of features that have been removed, replaced, or just forgotten. If I asked you to name your favourite flower in Minecraft, what would you say? Maybe it's the lily of the valley, the blue orchid, or maybe you've never really thought about it. For me though, it's this, the cyan flower. Some of you might never have seen it before, whilst others might have completely forgotten about it. Added in August of 2011, this flower was exclusive to the Pocket Edition version of the game, and I used it everywhere. I would spend ages going around my world collecting every cyan flower I could, and if you remember the old Pocket Edition worlds, they weren't infinite, so I would get every cyan flower in the whole world. No build of mine was complete without them, and eventually when I finally got the Java edition of the game, I was shocked to find that it didn't exist in that version, but at least I still had it in the Pocket Edition. The reason for the cyan rose's existence in the first place is strange. Simply called rose in the game, the reason for its colour was due to hardware problems involving the colour red in Pocket Edition, so they inverted the red rose into the cyan rose. Interestingly, it's the only flower not to be able to be turned into a dye in the game. Sadly, the developers had no intention of putting it in the Java edition of the game. The cyan flower simply stayed in the Pocket Edition. That was until July of 2014 when update 0.9.0 removed it from the game, replacing it just like the red rose with the much worse looking poppies. That's the story of the cyan flower, for a brief time the best flower in the game, and now a forgotten item of old Minecraft which will most likely never return. But what else has been forgotten, left behind in the old versions of the game? After 12 years of Minecraft, there's many things that have either been removed or forgotten in a game as old and as big as this. So today I want to go back and explore some of those forgotten features of old Minecraft. For years players have been able to stack eggs up to only 16. It's been a staple of the game for so long most people probably don't realise that it wasn't always the case. But back in Alpha you were able to stack them up to 64 just like every other item. Another strange item that you used to be able to stack was fishing rods. For some reason you used to be able to stack fishing rods, and if you cast the stack, it affected the durability of all of them, which is an interesting feature that most people have probably forgotten about. You also used to have rapid fire bows, which might seem really effective at first, but whenever you use them, most of the arrows just bounce off the mob you're trying to hit. So I just still use a sword, which normally seems to do the trick, and then I don't have to waste arrows or go around after I've killed all the mobs and collect all the arrows on the ground. Another feature of items in old Minecraft is how certain items such as cactus, fences, trapdoors or stairs, when dropped, appear much larger on the ground compared to normal other items. This is a more well-known feature though, but I thought I'd still mention it just because, it's kind of funny and also kind of cool. When wooden slabs were first added to the game, they were really just reskinned smoothstone slabs and had the exact same properties. This meant that you had to mine them with a pickaxe and that they didn't catch on fire if placed near lava or fire. After release 1.3.1, this version of the wooden slab became known as the petrified oak slab, but were now uncraftable and replaced with a new wooden slab which was mined with an axe and could catch on fire. Squids also have an interesting history of strange properties. When they were first added to the game in Beta 1.2, for some reason if you had an empty bucket, squids could be milked. This feature was removed in 1.3. Another interesting thing about the squid was a Pocket Edition exclusive feature. In Pocket Edition, baby squid also exist, and look just like a smaller version of the adult squid. Baby squid also exist in Bedrock, however, they have never been added to Java. The final squid fact is that in older versions of the game, when you could get water in the nether, squid would spawn in the water and swim around in the nether. Chests are one of the most important items in the game, especially with all the items in Minecraft and the limited amount of slots in your inventory. Back in the old versions of Minecraft, you couldn't place chests next to each other, and in the alpha and beta versions, you couldn't place chests directly on top of one another, as the chests were considered a full block. A cool glitch that you could do with chests involved water. By placing a chest in a source block of water, you could place chests next to one another, creating triple chests, or more. You could put these wherever you wanted in your base. Another glitch in old Minecraft was being able to break Bedrock. Bedrock breaking glitches are pretty much in every version of the game, but this one is special due to just how easy it is to do, unlike others which require the dragon egg or redstone. To break Bedrock in Alpha, you only need a block of dirt, a seed, and a hoe to break Bedrock the way I'm about to show you. So first, you place the dirt block below the bedrock block you want to break. Then you till the soil and finally place the seed on the dirt, and the bedrock block above it will break. This was how I was able to break the bedrock roof in the Nether in Alpha, although since the world height is 128 blocks in this version, you can't build anything up on the roof. Armor in the old versions is pretty strange as well. Every type of armor, leather, iron, diamond, they all have the same protection value. The only difference is the durability of the material. Leather armor also used to look very different, and in my opinion much better than what it looks like now. The same goes for the brick texture in Alpha, which looks so much better than any other version, but we'll get back to brick in a moment. Back to armor for now though. When chainmail armor was first added to the game, players were able to craft it with fire, but the fire item was unobtainable in survival, so there was a time when chainmail was technically craftable in the game. However, it was still difficult and rare to acquire without cheating. Far back in Minecraft's history, in the InfDev versions of the game, there was a naturally spawning structure which was just a brick pyramid made up of roughly 344,000 blocks of solid brick. At the time, brick did not have a crafting recipe, so if you wanted to use brick in your builds, you had to mine the pyramid. Another interesting feature about the pyramid is that it did not affect the natural landscape, so the bottom of it would not be flat and instead change with the surface of the world, and this led to strange effects such as caves generating through the pyramid. This feature was removed not long after it was added, but was a cool landmark in the old InfDev worlds. It's also interesting to remember that brick used to be a very rare block as it was difficult to find since it only generated in beaches. This meant that it was often used only in small quantities in builds. Pressing F3 in beta has a feature that has since been removed. Along with showing the coordinates of the player and other stats, it also showed the ID of every mob around the player, even hostile mobs in caves. This became an easy way for players to find caves when mining until it was, like pretty much everything I've covered in this video, removed from the game. Back in the early versions, there was only a limited amount of blocks, including ones that now most people take for granted. In my alpha world, for example, I can't use pistons or hoppers as they haven't been added to the game, and so it forces you to find ways to work around those problems when building, which I find fun to do. For example, since hoppers can't collect items from my farms, I built a redstone signal to tell me when I have drops ready to collect from my mob farm, and the cactus from my cactus farm drops close to my storage room so I can easily pick it up. Although I do really wish I had pistons, and luckily they were only added in beta 1.7, so I can always update to get them if I want. Another quality of life feature that most players probably take for granted now is crops in the newer versions of the game. Only by jumping on them could they get destroyed, but back in the early versions of the game, crops were trampled just by walking on them. And so if you wanted to harvest crops, you had to sneak over them. A workaround for this in beta is placing fence posts underneath the tilled soil, making the game think that you're higher up on the block, and so you don't break the wheat even by jumping on it. Unfortunately, this doesn't work for alpha though, and so I still have to shift when farming. You also used to be able to open doors by hitting them rather than just right clicking on them. Another thing was that in beta 1.2, birch and spruce trees were added to the game. Trees that had been generated in older versions of the game, when updated to beta 1.2, would now have different types of leaves, creating interesting looking trees. This was because of the data to indicate the different tree types had been used before to calculate leaf decay, which resulted in these unique trees, and this also created cool forests that you could have in your world. Most old players would remember this, but I thought I'd include it anyway. I always find it nostalgic when I remember this. In the old versions, items didn't used to have names, and when items were first given names, gunpowder was instead called sulfur, and sugarcane was called reeds. I feel like most people have forgotten this by now. Well, there you have it. Some rare and forgotten stuff in old Minecraft. Let me know if I forgot anything, or if you remembered anything you might have forgotten about. I hope to see you in another video. Have a nice rest of your day. Goodbye.